Are very, very happy to welcome you to this webinar, The Secrets of Living Organizations, where we're going to share with you some of the key learnings that we brought from our learning expeditions in Stockholm and in Montreal this August. More on that I will come back to the content, but just before we get started, just a few technical things. So as you noticed, you cannot, in this webinar format, you're not going to see each other, but and we don't see you, in case you have your camera on, we cannot see you. We just see the number of participants and your name, but you have a chance to communicate with us. So if you look all the way down in the center, it should be on your screen, there is an icon conversation and also to raise hand. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll do all we can to answer all your questions, either throughout the presentation or in the end. We'll save some time for questions. So I hope you all figured it out, where to write comments and where to raise your hand if you have a question. A short introduction before we start. My name is Marielle Bierman, partner at Fabric. I'm the organizer of the learning expeditions, also a coach and a trainer. I'm delighted to be here today and to share with you all the content, the key learnings that we have from these visits. We've done like 4 or 5 learning expeditions in total. So it starts to be quite profound harvesting from these organizations. So we're happy to share that with you today. With me, I have Mikael. Please want to introduce yourself.
Okay. All right. So good afternoon or good morning, wherever you are. I've seen some very nice names, I think even in Asia. So here, it's really a pleasure to, in a way, be together, even though it's going to be a more one-handed conversation today. Also very delighted to present to you our main takeaways from visiting so many companies who are today embodying new ways of working, new way to think who they are, what they do, and how they work together. Maybe a short introduction about myself. So I'm a co-founder of Fabric. I'm a consultant, a facilitator, and my field of expertise is helping companies to go towards what we call living organization or agile organizations in terms of culture and in terms of ways of working. I would like maybe to start very quickly to introduce who are we at Fabric. I would say maybe from the learning expeditions, which we can say is we are learners, because the field of what is a living organization or agile organization is something that we need to explore, and that is I don't think there is today a model or the perfection into that, but we are very much in today. What we do, Fabric, our purpose is to help organizations doing this transformation and this managerial transformation from a classic organization to an agile one. And what is interesting, often a classic, the paradigm of a classic organization is we see, company as a machine, a well-oiled machine that is producing an output at the end of the process. And those companies are, we all know them, the classic companies. They are designed in a command and control paradigm. They are trying to be, achieving perfection and predictability. That's the paradigm they're in. And what we're seeing is that what is emerging is a new type of organization. They are more designed for innovation and value creation and relevance in a very complex and fast-moving and evolving environment. So the question is, what does it take to move from A to B? And that's what we try to do at Fabric, or that's what we're offering. And I was saying that this is something that is to be invented. And we are many today companies, entrepreneurs, independent, trying to figure out what does it take. But that's very much what we do in many organizations, in many companies. Quickly, we are a team of 14 people located in Paris and Brussels, and you see on the screen the faces, maybe you know some of those people. And we are working with a number of companies, mostly I would say multinationals. We have clients in France, but also I would say more generally in Europe. I mean, that's about it for Fabric. So I need to give my microphone.
So, in order to be in the front line of innovation and learn from the pioneers, those that role model agile organization, or what we call living organizations, we decide to go visit 2 regions that we find very interesting. It's in the Stockholm region and the Montreal region. So we bring our clients on learning expeditions there. And so why Stockholm and Montreal? Because they are recognized for being boiling hubs of innovation and the birthplace for startups, basically. So Stockholm maybe more for a longer period of time, and Montreal more upcoming city that we were very curious of visiting. So we find different flavors in these 2 regions, I would say, where in Stockholm, Sweden, there's what comes as a theme would be openness, trust. There's low power structure, high level of digitalization, very high level of agile organizations, I would say, with a culture based on science and engineering culture, that color a bit the culture. And in Montreal, we will find it's also an informal, casual culture. They with a collective family spirit. The word family repeats over the visits, into sustainability and a lot of creativity and art, I would say, more than in Stockholm. You don't find that as much as in Montreal. So yeah, the next slide. So we choose companies that have been recognized in one way or the other. Many of them have won prizes in best place to work in Europe, many different awards. It's through contacts mainly that we get in contact with the speakers of these 2 Learnex. So we have large international organizations. We have like Volvo, Decathlon, Desjardins is a large organization. We have public sector, the Swedish Employment Service. It's interesting to see how also them work with agile transformation. More smaller startups and IT consultancies like Netlight, Gsoft, FNT, and also foundation Ekskäret that work on more conscious society. The purpose is to contribute to more conscious society, and also Mindset Unlimited that bring in the mindfulness element. We have Cirque du Soleil this time also in Montreal. So it's a wide range, many different flavors. It's high and low, big and small, and a very interesting journey to go visit all these organizations. And the next, so I just wanted to say, how do we design a Learnex, and also partly why we choose some of these companies. So the foundation of the Learnex, I would say, is based on, we're inspired by Frederic Laloux, like many others, and his work in the Reinventing Organizations, where he talked about living organization. And what is a living organization? And it's based on 3 main elements, which would be self-management with distributed power, decentralized power, wholeness and well-being at work, which touches on emotional intelligence, and where you can be your full self at work, not have to play a role. and purpose centricity. And this one is very important, that the organization is centered around a core purpose that is alive and connected to the planet. So these are the criteria. So when we choose these companies, they need to fulfill 1, 2, or 3 of these criteria. And we use the book as material throughout this Learnex, and often refer to this book, and all the speakers, basically all of them, know the book and were inspired by that when they started their transformation work. Okay. So we thought that to get started, we wanted to give you a flavor. Maybe some of you saw this film already, but it is an introduction, a presentation, a little bit of flavor of how it can look like in a Learnex. So we'll start with that one.
So Learnex is a moment for you to get inspiration with other companies and with the team of Fabric together to go learning and to kind of leave our known world to go to a new world and explore from experience of people and companies who are maybe pioneers in some aspect of a living organization. That's what we do in Learnex.
Biggest takeaway from this trip is about everything. On a personal level, the one I would keep is on what potentials there is around mindfulness and really knowing yourself from deep within.
It was amazing for me to join this learning expedition organized by Fabric, because it's great to learn from the direct experience of a company.
Living organizations, as we've seen them in this trip, are definitely based on a substrate of trust. So making trust explicit rather than just depending on it being an implicitly good thing, I'd say is my key takeaway.
So on this journey, we're inspired by what we call TEAL, which includes purpose centricity, wholeness, and self-management. And we can see companies in this region of Stockholm and Sweden as a whole very much follow these principles, and we are curious, how do they do that? What does that look like on a daily basis for the people working in the companies?
Okay. All right, so I will continue from here. So you have a sense of this experience. It's really what I like in the Learnex. It's a good way to you learn by meeting people and integrating seeing different experiences, and that's very rich. But it's those companies, they are not professors, or they don't come from a theory. They are actually practicing in the real world. So as explorers, as learners, we're trying to capture the key learnings. So what you will see is the learnings from our lenses, from our experience, from our perspectives. Maybe if you did those Learnex, you would say something else. This morning, actually, we had a meeting, a follow-up meeting from the Stockholm Learnex with a group of people who were there. We were there together last August. And I was amazed because they were sharing things that I didn't notice, but now I remember. And I would say, yes, I should have put this in the presentation, and I didn't. So you will see a snapshot of an angle of it, and yeah. So 3 elements today in our program or in our agenda. First, I would like to present a founding principle that all of these companies share. So if you're a change agent, if you want to put in place transformation towards agile in your company, these are the very simple things you need to think about. So that would be the founding principle. And then we would like to share the secrets about the structure. You know, there any element that is structuring the way they work. And then secrets about their culture. If you want to build a culture, what are the 2-3 things we could do to create this culture? And what is, by the way, a culture of a living organization? We also share some maps around that. You may see that sometimes there are things that you've already seen, or information you already, things maybe will look obvious, things will be new, I don't know. let's go. So I would like to start with this founding principle, and the founding principle, we have captured it into those companies. They're expressing their DNA in everything they do. So the founding principle, expressing our DNA in everything we do. So just want to pause on that. This is really about knowing who we are and trying to be who we are and expressing who we are in the world, right? And what do we mean by DNA? What is the DNA made of in those companies? It sounds very simple, but it's very true for all of these companies. First, it's a clear purpose. And the clear purpose is what about the impact of the company in the world? So they're very clear on the positive impact they want to make in the ecosystem, or in other words, the value creation for the ecosystem. So all the words around value creation, impact, all this is around purpose, purpose centricity, and that's the guiding principle. They would think their organization around purpose or around values. That will be, relating to, remember Sinek was talking about the why, start with the why. The purpose, the values, they are the why of the company. This is why we do what we do. Right, and so they structure the company around purpose and the values, and also around organization principles, things such as self-management. They have a way to organize themselves that is often based on collective intelligence. That is also part of the DNA, as well as some promoted behaviors, expectations on the way we are together, how we show up at the workplace or with our clients, very clear expected behaviors. And they are more, if you think of Sinek, the how we do what we do. And you know, most of the companies, or in classic companies, people focus more on the what. So in a classic organization, management often focuses on the what, while in a living organization, they focus on the why and the how. So that's very, very simple, but it just gives you a map or a key, I would say a key principle to understand how they manage and what is management focusing on. And not focusing so much on what they do, but very much on how we do it. Actually, the what we do is delegated to the people. People self-manage to do what they have to do. Management is not focusing on the what, they're focusing on the why we do what we do and how we do it. This is very what a manager does in a living organization. And I would say this is the key message. So if you are a change agent, if you are a manager now, or a consultant or internal consultant or a leader, if you're a change agent, the tip for you is this framework. If you want to start, or if you want a company transformation towards agile, towards living organization, these are the 4 elements you need to kind of put together. What is our purpose? What are our values, our intentions, our organization principles, how we do that, and probably leaning towards self-management or collective intelligence, at least, to enhance it. And what are the behaviors we want to see in the company, and we as leaders, managers, how we're going to embody and be and demonstrate those behaviors, right? And you will leave the what to the self-organization. That's what you need to do. So I would like to give 2 examples of 2 companies who are actually very much demonstrating this. The first company is what we call a unicorn in Sweden, in Stockholm, and they are actually in the banking. Sorry, this is Netlight. It's a company that is doing. It's almost a unicorn. There will be example of unicorn later. Netlight is a company that do IT consulting. They are based in Stockholm, but they're European, mostly in the Nordic, and 1,000 employees. And they have built this. This is their model. This is their management model. This is their framework. This is what the management is focusing on, building this. So they have elements related to organizational structure, elements related to behaviors, as you can see, and values. I don't want to go into the details of how they put it. I just want to emphasize, if you look at the left top corner, the Boyd structure. It's the element, the way they describe the organization. They call themselves a Boyd, right? That's the word. They have created this word, and it's another way to call this Boyd is a flock of birds. A flock of birds in the sky. When birds fly together, they have these emergent shapes. They are coordinated, but there is no leader. and they shift direction, and they converge in a way that is always in harmony. And it seems the shape is emerging. There is no one telling coordinating. There's not a coordinator in the middle that tell you to every bird how to fly. They kind of know naturally and smoothly. And leadership is changing. The leadership is changing. So one thing that they have learned from these people is what they say in an organization. Everybody is a leader and a follower, just like in a flock of birds. Everybody is a leader and a follower. And I want to pause on that because that was very interesting. I just want to focus on that element. I got a big lesson here because in all leadership, in our management schools, in companies, in corporate universities, in coaching, we teach people to be better leader. People take classes to become a greater leader, but in a living organization, in collective intelligence, you cannot be the leader all the time. And in a flock of birds, you're not the leader all the time. You may be the leader sometime, but most of the time you're a follower, right? And what they say in NetLight, everybody is a leader and a follower. So we spend a lot of time and energy in studying leadership. Why shouldn't we take some time studying followership? And food for thoughts. And there will be some capsules along the course of the presentation that what if followership is the new leadership? Most of the time in an organization, we should actually just follow people, follow someone. And what does it mean to be a follower? Am I a good follower of my teammates, of my collaborators, my employees, of my bosses? Or am I, because we're so much plugged to be a leader. So what does it take to be a good follower? Maybe to encourage, to support, to want your success, to do what you are telling you, to do what you ask me to do, So I think one thing behavior we need to develop in a leading organization is to learn to be a good follower of each other, right? And I like the idea of followership also because there is the idea of being a fan. I'm a fan of you. I'm all about you, supporting you because I'm a follower, just like on Facebook, right? So just food for thoughts based on the experience and the insight from NetLight. Another example I would like to share with you is Decathlon. Decathlon is no need to present Decathlon, they are worldwide. And they have, so this purpose is written on the below the screen. Decathlon makes sport accessible for the many. Sports accessible for the many. That's what they stand for, right? And what is interesting with Decathlon is that management is doing great efforts to focus on the culture, the purpose, the behaviors, the values. That's what they only think, the purpose and the values, they focus on that and they spend a lot of energy on that. So I want, as an example, to show what Decathlon is doing. Decathlon is a great one of the icons today in the field of leading organization. And by the way, they are extremely successful. They draw their success from that way of work, that new way of working. A couple of words on that a bit later. I wanted to just give you a short example on how they do it. It's a short 1.5 minutes.
Hi, Decathlonians. We trust our employees to do what makes sense for them locally to make sports products accessible for the many users. To increase our trust level, our autonomy, we need to align Decathlon purpose and values with who we are deeply. Our one-week value and intention seminar is done every month in France. It's considered one of the best training in Decathlon, but it takes time, costs a lot of money, and only 500 persons can do it every year. So we just started a 2-day training, accessible for the many, in your own country. You will discover who you are, your value, what deeply drives you and motivates you, and then compare it with Decathlon culture. You will understand why my father started Decathlon, and you will understand from me what are our next steps. The energy that comes out those 2 days is incredible. The value and purpose training will help you take action and decisions which makes sense for you locally. So join the next session of value and purpose. It's worth it.
All right. And by the way, this is the, you see that the result of Decathlon, they draw their success into creating this culture And it's not only, I would say they draw their success in expressing their DNA, which is purpose and ways of working. And as you can see, they have almost doubled their growth, their turnover in the last 8-9 years. So today, Decathlon is extremely successful thanks to those new ways of working. And I invite you, if you want a good benchmark, to look into Decathlon. We visited them in Montreal, and they were opening like shops every other month. Amazing. And we met one of the employee of Decathlon. She was the HR person, and now she was offered to open a shop. And she said, I don't have any experience of managing a shop, but they provide her with all the expertise, the training. They believe in the potential because she has the values of the company, because her purpose is aligned with the purpose of the company. They invest in her, not because she has done the right business school. And I found it was this mind. We're going to talk about growth mindset a bit later, but that was extremely interesting. So back to this slide. It's both purpose, values, and this is not values. We have talked about values for a long time. Purpose is something a bit new, but it's not only purpose and values, it's also a way of working. It's also working principles. It's also a way to organize the company and some behaviors. And this is very important. We are going to unpack this because it's not just one, it's both, right? It's the balance between the culture and the ways of, and the structure, the culture and the ways of working. The combination of the two, that should be an agile transformation framework. All right. So, by the way, this is a model also that we have learned from Netlight, again them. They say that culture and structure are coming in one continuum. And the structure is expressed in the culture and the other way around, right? So we are going to look at structure and culture of living organization, and that's going to be the two parts of our presentation. So what about their secrets of those companies in terms of their structure, okay? Their habits, their processes, their ways of working. So let's start with that. This is more concrete, and then we'll look at the culture, which is maybe a bit more intangible, but still very active. We'll look at it after. All right, so the first element, the first ingredient in terms of structure in those organizations, what you see is teams and circles. A lot of teams, a lot of circles. It's all about that. And it's not about individuals, it's about teams and circles, right? And so how do they design teams? How do they design circles? We'd like to share with you some key ingredients, some key elements to understand the design of those groups, some called pizza teams or whatever. There are many in the agile world. We have in the agile IT development, there are specific words for it, but in agile organization, let's call it circles. So the first thing is that teams, they reflect value chains. They do not reflect expertise. In a classic company, you would have a group of people with their expertise. So you would have the marketing people sitting together, and then you have the HR people sitting together, and you would have the IT people sitting together. And that silos very much the organization because the value chain is across those silos. At the end, the value chain, to the end user, to the client at the end, is across those silos. And there's a lot of so often tensions between those silos because they don't necessarily have the same objectives. We all know that, right? So in those companies, the teams are laser focused on the project, on the product, on the deliverable. This is how they are designed. So if you want to design, think of designing your structure, think of team that reflect the value chain, right? And they are multi-skilled, they can be cross-functional, and they are self-organized. And to be self-organized, they have clear roles with end-to-end accountabilities. We know exactly who does what, but the combination of all the roles is actually reflecting the value chain, and together we deliver something, a project, a product, okay? I would like to give you a first example, Volvo. We talked actually about one of the divisions of Volvo who is taking a strong transformation to an agile transformation. And they used to have marketing teams and product and IT teams, and IT and the marketing were separated, and now they have integrated those two teams in the same project. So it led to the closing of the marketing department. There was no meaning to have that department. So they made teams. They forget about the departments and they create project teams. right? So that example of Volvo, an example at Volvo, another example like Klarna. So that's the unicorn I was mentioning earlier. They are in the banking industry in Sweden. In Klarna, every team functions like a small company. They have their own deliverable, their own vision, their own mission, business plan, governance, even their own newsletters, right? So teams are self-governed, they are self-organized. They push it to the point that they are like small companies. So just to, this extreme example, give you an idea of how to design. We often have this question with our clients, how do we design the circle? So we design the organization, think value chain, all right? So that's the first principle. So food for thought, governance is the art of clarifying who does what and to serve purpose. It must be a collective practice. It's important. Governance is the art of deciding what are the roles that should be in the team, or actually what are the roles that we should fill in to become a team. So it's the art of understanding the value chain and clarifying those roles so everyone understands what he has to do. And that is a collective practice because you don't do it on a sheet of paper alone as a manager, you do it together because the real understanding of the value chain sits in the collective, not in the individual, because you never have the full perspective. Okay, so governance is a collective practice to clarify who does what. And that's a new practice that you should have if you are, or you should invent or invite you to have with your clients or in your teams if you want to do an agile transformation. So that's food for thoughts. So that was the first element, teams and circles. The second secret is meetings. So meetings, interesting. So at Fabric, we love meetings because they are the moment where the collective intelligence can be potentialized, that we can actually do better, right? Often a lot of meetings are, maybe not in your case, but in many companies, meetings are boring. There are moments, you know, people do open the laptop, they do something else and they don't really listen, energy is low. And we could do so much better together, right? They are not so efficient. And we're maybe not so clear why we're here and what we're about to, what are we producing, etc. So we need to level up the meetings quality big times. And that's what they do, those companies. So how do they do it? They always have a facilitator. So what do you want if you're leading transformation? You want a facilitator in every meeting, not just in some meetings all the time. You want to know who is facilitating. Preferably not the boss or the manager or the leader. Someone is actually only focusing on the process, and this person is trained. This person has the skills. And they also have specific formats for specific purposes. In agile software development, they call it rituals. So we don't have to call it rituals, but let's call it meetings. But it means that we are, for a specific type of purpose, for instance, to run operations, or for deciding our strategy, or for helping each other, we have a different process. We know in advance the process we're going to apply, right? And all those process, there was always the same ingredients, which are one, to invite a mindful presence. Mindful presence. We are not physically here and now, mind elsewhere. We are mentally, emotionally, physically present, right? Engaging. And also those meetings, they include everyone. Everybody has a space and a voice around the table. Am I still there? Something has changed in my... I think we've seen we've lost the... No, okay, just hold on. We have I see a technical, just I'm reopening. Okay, so what about this? Okay, it seems like the slideshow is gone, so I will reopen it.
In the meantime, we could take a question. So we have a question from Asma Abid, and let me see.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear us now? I see that yeah, now you can hear us. All right, great. So Mikael, put back the presentation. I'll repeat the question. You have it there.
Yes. Coming up.
Ah,
here we go.
Super. I don't know what happened. Okay, so let's take this question from Asmabid. I repeat the question. Being a living organization seems beneficial to the organization, but is it difficult to put in place? Are companies reluctant to change? If so, why?
Okay, so we can cut the mic.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, this is a huge question, and this could be almost another webinar, because the webinar here is about. I don't want to escape the question, but I just want to say in general, because this could be a full webinar, because the webinar is about companies what are doing it, how do they do it. So this is for you. Maybe this presentation could be a helper to showcase to your company or to clients examples of other companies who do it and are very, very successful from doing it. But to make it short, in our experience, there are two reasons for a company to change. Either there is, I would say, a good and a bad. There are two reasons. There is either the example of the organization, and that's most of the cases that we are presenting, by the way. A company who believes in it, and the leader is a believer that we for all kinds of reasons, something else is possible. There is possibility, there is growth if we evolve, right? And this person has this maturity or this understanding or this vision, and it would lead the organization into this transformation. So you need to find your leader or your managers and create a pool of those who want to lead the change. Okay, that's maybe a very simple way to say it. The other, often in an organization, there will be people who are convinced. There will be a big bunch of those who are ready to be convinced if you explain them why. So what is happening in our environment if we don't do it? What are the risks we're taking if we don't do it? And what are the opportunities if we do it? So looking at what's going on around us and where we are today, what is the risk if we don't change? And what should we do in our ways of working if we want to meet the challenges of our businesses? And working on this question often helps you to create the critical mass of people understanding the need for an evolution. Now you need, between the understanding of the need to change and doing the change, being the change, there is a gap, but there is your space, this is your space of work. So that's one type of organization. Now you have the other part, which is everything is, there is, the house is burning. If we don't change, we're gonna die. And many companies actually are start to realize that, especially with the digital transformation. And by the way, digital transformation as its, digitalization has to be cross-functional, because by design, it's a value chain. It's designed based on a value chain to the end customer. So digital transformation means agile organization. It's like it goes together. So if company has to go towards agile or digital, it will have to ask itself those questions. I will not be more on that. We could, if it's interesting, if there are many questions, we could make another program on this. And I would like to move on now on the quality. So I think I have already covered.
Just one thing, and in both cases, the why is super important. You have to work a lot on the why and get back to it, back to it, and live it and embody it. So it's really the key.
So the why can be, starting with the why in a very simple way, could be what's happening out there, what are the expectations of our stakeholders, of our clients, of our partners, and how can we have a positive impact on them. So if we have a positive impact on them, we have more chance to sustain, right? And be successful. So that would be a very simple way to start. Okay, I move on, and I would like to, on meetings, and I would like here to give you a list of formats. Like I say, there are specific formats for specific purposes. So we're not going to go into details, but so you know that we cannot find the same format all the time. So we would have a meeting to run operations. Some call it daily stand-up, some are weekly, and they are made to synchronize the operations and process what we call tensions. This is something we specialize with tensions, meaning we don't talk about people tension, we talk about work tensions, business tensions, the gap between what is and we think should be, you know, when we move on, there is always an instability, things we should do and we don't know how to do, those are the tensions. So the operational meeting, they deal with that. The demo, when we present the results and we get feedback, the retro, when you look at what's happening, what happened in the past and we close a cycle and we learn from experience. The governance meeting, when we work on the roles and we update the roles and we clarify who does what. The strategy meetings, when you think, where should we put our energy on, you know, review our deliverables over the next 6 months. And another one that is very often we find is co-development. That is another category. This is more to help one another, using collective intelligence to help each other, learn from each other, sharing knowledge and build communities. So these are there are many more, and maybe you have in your experience in your company other formats, but we tend to find the same format coming over and over again. So these are those. And so the question you can ask yourself, you as a change agent, what are the rituals relevant for my team or for my client? It's not that you should have by default this or that or all of them. You should have maybe one that looks like that or does a bit of that, and another one that maybe do not a bit of that. So the question you want to ask yourself of what is relevant for my company or my organization in terms of the rituals that would make sense, that would be relevant to us to better do what we do, right? But you need this, we call it an infrastructure of rituals. Food for thoughts, facilitation is the new management skill, right? Facilitation is the new, you know, we had a few years ago with quality. In quality, everybody was talking about quality. So being a facilitator, knowing how to facilitate a meeting is a must for everyone, not just for a few people in a company, for everyone. And of course, people have some charisma, some have charisma to facilitate, some have not, some are introverts, some are extrovert. It doesn't matter. Everybody's in their own style should be able to facilitate, meaning to design a meeting and to be accountable for the process and the discussion, so we reach the objective at the end. That's a basic, that's one of the things you can do if you lead a company or a team, put in place a facilitator and train people in facilitation. And when they do that, they become more aware of the whole. They become more aware of the dynamic and the collective intelligence. So they also change behavior outside of the meetings. Okay, so I wanted to really emphasize that. And that was it for the meetings. And I see time is passing, so I continue. Third ingredient is the rhythm. Those living organizations, they're one of the secrets is rhythm. And the rhythm is pretty fast. It's not long rhythm, it's kind of a good beat. And for instance, in Klarna, they work in sprints. And the team work in sprints that are focused on collective priorities, and they are punctuated by rituals, those meetings. Okay, and in this company, Klarna, they have the whole company has a 4-week, following the same 4-week sprint. So every teams, we talk about 1,000 people, teams of about 10 people. So we have 100 of teams that every 4 weeks make a demo, the whole company at the same time. So think about it. In the same week, everybody has to present something. A demo is we deliver to our sponsors something that we present, we showcase. So it's really putting the whole organization in tension to produce and move on, all right? I think was interesting. And also, so this is their picture from their slideshow. They have this rhythm. We copied it for you to be able to read it. But every team would follow those rituals as an example. You know, kickoff, weekly planning, daily stand-up, demo, retro. They have their newsletter and their team. They have all kind of, they're punctuated. They have a rhythm, a pace on their team life, and all the teams do that. Of course, they adapt it in terms of, you know, to make it relevant for themselves, but that's what they do. And that's it for rhythm. So keep in mind rhythm. Other key ingredients, the secret of those companies is, that's a very fundamental, we could have started with that. So it's also part of the culture. We put it there, but we call it power shift. We didn't put it in the culture part, but in the structure part, because it's not just a cultural thing. It's a very pragmatic, very concrete element. It has very concrete implications in the company life. So it's an element of structure. So power shift, what does it mean? I just want to explain what is the power shift. Quote Stéphane Bernier. Stéphane he used to be called CEO and president of this company. It's about 100 plus people. They do IT consulting in Quebec. He's an amazing man, and he has been, he's no more CEO, he's now a coach in the organization, and he's also the guardian of what he called the code of the organization, the essence, this thing that makes, you know, us being who we are. So he's the guardian of that. But that's the DNA, if you like, as we said earlier. And he says the new paradigm is to shift from the manager superhero who controls everything, we can do everything, to the liberated organization. That's what he says. So it's not about, we should stop expecting everything for the managers. And if you're a manager, you should maybe stop taking everything is on your shoulders. And this is something I kind of point the fingers to myself, because managers tend to have a lot of things to do and to, you know, do a lot of things, but in a way there is a belief that they can or we can. And the more you look up to the top of the hierarchy, you believe that this guy is so amazing, he can do so many difficult things and complicated things. And there is a belief in that we can challenge. And so if we address this belief, we can turn the power to, or distribute the power differently. So self-managed organization is, in a self-managed organization, in a living organization, authority is distributed in the roles. That's very important. Authority is distributed in the roles. It's not exactly the same as the people, it's the roles. Authority is in the roles which are the most close to action. And to understand the difference of that, the question is if there is something, a signature to make, right? In a classic organization on the left, we may delegate the signature to someone, but if you're the manager, that person of yours in your team would sign on your behalf, right? While in a living organization, we apply the subsidiarity principle, which is that the employee would sign on his own name because this person has a role for that. He has the level of authority, the authority is distributed. So it's no more in on your behalf, it's actually the person who has the autonomy to do it. And that's the shift. It's one way to explain the shift. Of course, when you do that, it has all kinds of repercussion for the managers who are used to, you know, it's a level of responsibility. It's also an element of identity. It's me, I am the manager, I decide, right? So this is it's a big challenge. We're gonna go a bit more into that and what is the role of the manager. So the manager role is evolving, is doing less of control, validation, reporting, and more of meaning making, explaining the meaning, why we do what we do. Is taking care of the whole, you know, making sure the whole is relevant, is coherent. He supports people, he's a coach, just like Stéphane Bernier, and he's empowering people. That's what people do. That's what managers moving from control to that, to this coaching, empowering, meaning-making type of role. And to be more specific, the role of the classic role of management is we find it in a living organization or in agile organizations, but we find it in different forms. So it becomes a bit more sophisticated. There would be not one type of manager, but different types of management or management roles. So I would like to, you know, unpack them for you and present the kind of big management roles that we find in a living organization. I think it's a very interesting question. So because that could be the future for your managers. So we find operational, what you call operational lead or accountability lead or product owner in Agile. So it's the role that is focusing on operations, not on the people, not on the management, but only on the operations, and is the guardian of the accountabilities of the team. He's a coordinator. His job is to make sure we deliver what we have to do, to deliver as a team, right? So he's the lead of product team, producing. So that's one type of management we find now. We find another type of manager or management role, which is the competency lead or the expert. So that person is a guardian of the quality. Is the reference point in terms of skills, on the technical skills, how we should do what we do. The knowledge of the company is the reference point, is the expert. And he would be the one who supports people in the expertise development, you know, and if it doesn't, and he's not necessarily involved in the operations. He's not necessarily involved in other projects. He could be actually standing outside, or he could be in the team, but the reference point. And he's not necessarily leading the operations. We would have the sponsor or the domain lead, the one who actually has the broader picture of the higher level of the organization and who gives the go, no-go decisions, who gives the global strategy, but he does it with the people, right? And involves them. So that's another type of new management role. And a sponsor would be the sponsor of many teams, but he's not taking operational decisions. He's not the competency expert. He has nothing to do with that. He's only his role is to be the meaning maker and the guardian of the consistency and the coherence at a larger level, at the broader level of the company, involving people. And then you have more people-oriented roles like the coach or the mentor. So just like our friend Stéphane Bernier in FNT, his job is to coach people development. He doesn't look at operations. He's actually looking at the people, into the people and how they can become better at what they do. And he gives them tools and support to grow. And he maybe does a career development assessment and a career assessments. And sometimes the coach are those who decide yes or no, this person is moving to the next level of salary and responsibilities, right? So the more the human part of a manager today is in this role, coach role, and some do only this. And the facilitator, as we already put it, is in the meeting. So these are different roles that managers, a manager in a classic organization could find in a living organization, in an agile organization. I know the jump, the question is how we move from A to B. And again, this is not the topic of today. I know it's all kind of questions that could become a topic for another I think another presentation, another webinar. So another word, a keyword element of structure is maturity. With this very key element to understand, we measure maturity. We want a more mature individuals and more mature collectives. Right. So what does it mean? Let's unpack this. So Netlight, they say it's a lot about them now. There will be other companies later. We want to encourage people development. So they say growth in every Netlighter is as important as the growth of the company. Why? Because the growth of the company is based on people's growth. If there is no people growth, the company doesn't grow. That's really that far. And so how they do that? They have explicit levels of maturity on each skills lines. And it's allowing them to objectively measure the evolution of each person and increase their responsibility and ownership. Okay, so we measure the evolution of the skills. They have, to showcase them, they have 9 key skills. And so they have 3 key skills, technical skills, creativity, innovation, and business sense. These are the main skills. And for each of those 3 key skills, 9 levels that are very clearly formalized. And we measure on those 3 key skills where you are in your evolution on those, on each steps you are. And we will base your salary and your new level of responsibility based on you achieving this level of maturity on the skills. It's very well mapped out, okay? And of course, Comp and Ben is based also on that. So I wanna go quickly there, but a few things about salaries. Assessment process is based on a competency model. So there is a clear competency model. It's explicit, it's not implicit. We know why we get there. And often salaries are transparent because if you get to level 3, say, everybody has the same salary on level 3 of maturity. So the salary is based not on the job, but more on the maturity level. I think it's a very deep. People get ongoing feedback very often, at least twice a year, a lot of feedback to help you grow. And the bonus will be always collective. There is no such things as individual bonuses. They are collective. When we reach the goal together, we have a bonus. Right? So I move on, but I thought it was interesting key elements, especially for those of you who are in HR. And but talking about HR, Klarna, again, they don't call it HR anymore. They call it organizational leadership. And I just want to stay there a second because that's very profound. The role of OL, organizational leadership, is to focus on the employee experience. They want to give employees a 5-star experience of the company. Why? Because they want the best people on the market, and they want to, to retain them. So they want to give them an amazing experience in the company. And so their role is to focus on creating value for them in terms of their career, their employability. That's what they do on their market value. So IT is actually now embedded in HR, in organization leadership, to help create the best conditions to support the employee experience. So it's not that IT is something separate, it is embedded in OL, right? And they help managers in their new roles. They train some they help the coaches, they train the coaches to that are their relay to coach people, right? And by the way, they create tools for people to get feedback. And if you don't use those tools, actually you're out. You need to get feedback actively. Ask your colleagues, ask your peers, or your internal clients to give you feedback, and that's part of what you have to do that's expected from you as an employee. That's how they do. Just to give you an example of how far it can go. So these were elements of structure, and I see the time is passing. We have half an hour yet, and I want to give you some questions, sometimes or questions. So I would like to move on the last piece. I hope you follow. It's not going fast or too slow, but the last piece we discussed structure, and I would like to go into culture. You know, what are the secrets about culture? We have presented a lot of things that are more structural, tools, processes, concrete. Now let's be a bit more about what is underlying all this. You know, and I would like to present a few maps. So for you, if you're a change agent, manager, if you work on the transformation, those maps can be interesting for you. They can give you, they're just maps. They're nothing, they're not reality, but they're just maps to better navigate the complexity of an organization and what's happening when we move from classic to living organization. So how to navigate this transition, so they can help you for that. So I would like to present you this woman, Michelle Holiday. So Michelle is a speaker, a consultant, a coach, amazing person that we met in Montreal. And she talks about principles of life. I invite you to go and Google her and look on YouTube. I would just extract a little bit of what she says, not a little nugget of what she says. First, the concept of Holland. So if you're familiar with integral theory, maybe Holland is a word that expresses something that is at the same time a whole and a part. You know, at the same time a whole and a part. So in an organization, for instance, the team is a Holland. It's at the same time a whole. There's something that the team is delivering. There's an organization. There is a purpose of that team, and it's a part because it's part of a larger organization, right? And the company, actually the company itself is a Holland because it's a part, it's a whole, and it's a part of a broader society, etc. And we could even consider individuals. We are Hollands because we are a whole as an individual, and we are made of parts, physical parts, psychological parts, I don't know, spiritual parts, but we're still a consistent being with emerging properties. So that's the concept of a Holland, right? And it's interesting because when we think of a living organization, we design an organization as Hollands, a level of complexity that creating, delivering elements of the value chain, pieces of the value chain. So if you think of holacracy, for instance, holacracy is, if you're familiar with this method of approach or philosophy, the word holacracy comes from the word Holland. And holacracy is a whole method to apply these principles into an organization. And so Michelle Holiday, she says three things. She says there are parts, there are relations, and there is a whole. And she says the more the parts are diverse, the more resilient and adaptive and creative the living system will be. So in your company, you want diversity, you want different skills, you want different profiles. You want, if you work on transformation, you want people from all the company, different ages, different levels of the hierarchy, because the more diversity, the more you have a chance to be resilient and to be meaning-making. But there are also relationships between those parts, and the more free-flowing the relationship are, the more resilient, adaptive, and creative the system will be. So that's all about creating the spaces, the meetings. We talked about meetings, maybe the softwares, the chats, the moments to create those free flow and the culture and the facilitation and the meeting formats to create this open and free flowing communications. That's how living system work. And there is a whole. And the more convergent, the more resilient, the more adaptive and creative this living system will be, meaning that if we have a converging purpose, a reason for a why, for what we do, then the more resilient the system will be. So it's interesting, diversity and convergence, divergence and convergence. So if you think of transformation, if you think of yes, we need diversity and we will convergence, and we need a relationship. So these would be, we just found this where this may be some very simple, but this is basing our approach to thinking organization on life itself, on the principles of life. That would be, and invite you to read more, check on Michel Holiday, check on Holacracy, check on us. Of course, we have elements on this. Check on integral theory as well. Those are more on those on these principles. So, in a word, self-organization is more natural. It's more natural to work like this. Actually, it's better for people. People feel better at home because as human beings, it's more natural for us to be self-organized. And another map we want to share with you, that's the map of Robert Keegan. You may be familiar, is a very, I think today in our, is really a reference in our to understand and to think organizations and transformation. Okay, Keegan, come just after. I forgot that we have the slides first. Maybe might explain us this slide. I've been thinking.
So what this shows is the intensity of the, I mean, the pace of the change that we're in. We all heard about the VUCA world, which includes high pace of change, innovation, complexity, and indeed this curve is getting steeper and steeper as we talk. And there are many consequences to that. You're looking at depression, burnout. It could be elements of that humans cannot cope with that anymore, because we also know, parallel to that, that the human evolution development of our brain hasn't followed the same pace. So we know that we, to great extent, function the way we functioned 1,000 years ago. For example, how reactive we can be, how we can react from an emotion, how much our stressors, which could be an email, has an impact on our cognitive capacity. So we become less intelligent. So in order to, so the question is, how do we as human beings with the set of skills that we have cope with this new VUCA world? And the answer, what is the answer? But we had a perspective from Ekskäret, the foundation that worked for a more conscious society, that we need to raise humans, we need to raise our consciousness and be more, our level of awareness, of self-awareness, of awareness of the other. And that's a work on what we call emotional intelligence. So we need to improve our emotional intelligence and our resilience.
So we come a word on emotional intelligence in a second. Before that, back to Keegan. So, doing this, coping with this evolution requires an evolution of ourselves, in our brains, in our capacity, in our what we call paradigm. So paradigm shift, our consciousness shift, a higher stage of consciousness, a higher stage of human or adult development. So that's what Keegan has mapped. And so this is also maybe familiar to you, but he says that adults, we know that children, evolve, and there is different stages of development at childhood, but he said there are also stages of human development in the adulthood, right? And he has this, and there are many theories around it, but the idea of stages of development is now scientifically approved. And he steps he recognized those three steps: socialized mind, self-altering mind, and self-transforming mind. And what is interesting is that so Keegan was introduced. I want to honor Louis Roy, is a consultant and a speaker and a teacher, a professor. He was in our, came to speak in our learning expedition in Montreal, and he explained us all this. And what is interesting is that what is expected from a collaborator, per people in a classic organization, is a socialized mind, to be a team player, to cope with what is expecting from you. You cope and you try to integrate. You go into sameness. You need to be in a classic organization. You need to fit in, and you need to do what you're asked to do. So you need to be a good follower. In that sense, I wouldn't say in a good sense at that time. You need to be good. That is great. You need a good team player. But what you need to be compliant in a way, because what is important in a socialized mind is to be part of the group. So you need to, that's the level of the socialized mind. But in a living organization or in an agile organization, what you expect is the self-authoring mind. Someone who can have his own goals, his own objective, and carry the project, to take a role, to be autonomous, to not have a manager that tells you what to do, to be self-organized. You need this sense of direction, your own compass, your own frame, the capacity to be independent and problem solving. You need these kind of people in an organization. And that is a stage of development. This is not so easy, right? And this is, if you are working on the culture, I thought this is an interesting map to understand the stretch we're asking to people. It doesn't come overnight. But it's natural. It's for everyone. It's not impossible. It's very possible, but we need to do it consciously and create the conditions to express, to enable this self-authoring mind to kind of emerge in people, right? I don't talk today about self-transforming mind. We could do something about that. I would say leaders in a living organization must be in a self-transforming mind. This capacity to see yourself while you do things, to bring self-awareness, right? And understand the interdependency of things, understanding the ecosystemic dimension of it. And this is essential for leaders. But for people, for most of the employees in a company, we need to shift from socialized mind to self-authoring mind. That's the one part of the job to lead the transformation.
You just mentioned that Robert Keegan was the most prominent, most mentioned thinker throughout these two Learnex.
Yeah,
so if you
absolutely. Yes.
haven't heard of him before, when you're curious, recommend you to
absolutely.
search Robert Keegan.
So, Food for Thought, Elskared is a foundation we met in Sweden. They say personal development creates a more conscious society. While we also grow people, sorry, I would say like the other way around, when people have a space to grow and to develop, it has an impact on the society, it creates a more conscious society. So indirectly, it's also not only a business challenge, it's also a societal challenge. Okay, so this was a few maps to share with you. This like Holland and living system theory, the idea of stages of development. Now, another very important element, and this we have seen in, I would say, out of 20 companies, maybe 2/3 of them has mentioned this. So it's one of the key elements that came in a very consistent manner in companies from all different countries, different businesses, different sizes. They all mentioned those words: growth mindset. So as we have talked a lot, we have a short video. No, it's not so short, it's a few minutes. But I showed this video has been presented to us by the
employment service, the Swedish employment.
The Swedish employment national
public organization. Very challenging to make transformation work.
So what we invite you is to see the mindset into that. There are a lot of data. The film is 2-3 years old, but it doesn't matter. It's completely true for now, for today, and it will give you a little break also. So let's watch it.
You're among the 3% of people that understand that the future of work is going to look very different from what it is now. So keep watching. Let's see where we're heading. It's also exciting, right? Siri will recognize your voice even if you're 5 meters away from your phone. That new chatbot feels totally real. Self-driving cars are no longer fiction. You can analyze your DNA. You tried flying that drone for the first time, and you're thinking of buying a smart speaker to make your life so much easier. A few years from now, and that's something like 3 years, not 30, artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning, mass 3D print, biotechnology, chatbots, virtual reality, deep learning, drones, augmented reality, smart objects will all be deeply enrooted in our everyday lives, just like computers, phones, or electricity are for us today. Oh well, is this really going to happen? And if it does, you'll adapt when the time comes, right? Life is good. You love your job. You've been working for this established company for a few years. You're comfortable in your position. You know what you're good at. People like you. And that last presentation you gave got you some amazing reactions. You're safe with your company. In the meantime, you see an article or two speculating on the future of jobs. McKinsey published a report stating that 45% of all current tasks could be automated with present technology. The World Economic Forum estimates that 33% of jobs in 2020 don't even exist yet. But what do they know, right? You've got time. Oh, look, the supermarket just introduced self-cashier machine. You're at the airport checking in luggage. What the heck happened to all the real people at the check-in desk? Gone, replaced by machines. But it's only the low-skilled jobs, right? Nope, think again. In 2012, there were 150,000 humans working on Wall Street. 3 years later, automation has cut that number down to 100,000. That's 1/3 gone. But it's only the mathematical and scientific jobs, right? Nope. Think again. This Japanese insurance company, Fukuoka Mutual Life Insurance, is already replacing all its human insurance claim workers with an AI system that will handle customers more efficiently. See these articles? They're written by algorithms, and we can't tell the difference with human written content. And thinking of converting yourself to being an online poker player? Too late. There's an AI that can already beat humans at it. Most journalists, tax consultants, marketeers, technicians, knowledge workers, lawyers, even the person editing this video right now will to some extent have been impacted or automated by technology in a couple of years. And what have you been doing? Probably watching Netflix. And the problem is the machines don't wait. And the machines, they don't watch Netflix. So what are the forces at play here? Basically, there's 10 million developers out there using increasingly simple and cheap technology to build new products and services. Some as young as 12 are already coding the future. Even that safe company you work for is increasingly under outside threat. And it's not just the Google, Amazon, Facebooks, and Apples of the world that I'm talking about. There are now tens of thousands of startups out there eating away at all sorts of jobs. Now, are they creating many jobs in the process? Let's look at some stats. Travel a bunch of years back to when Kodak ruled the world of photography. They were worth $38 billion and employed 140,000 people. That's approximately $270,000 per employee.
Our people work with pride to make Kodak a creative and innovative company.
Fast forward to recent times, YouTube sold for $1.65 billion with a mere 65 employees. That's $25 million per employee. Instagram, which had 13 employees and was sold for $1 billion. That's $77 million per employee. WhatsApp sold for $19 billion with 55 employees. That's a staggering $345 million per employee. So how is this all possible? Technology has allowed the emergence of what we call exponential organizations. These are exponentially fast-growing companies that leverage technology and require less employees, but more tech-savvy ones.
You will find that we are technology optimists. We believe that technology is a major driver of change in the world.
And as software continues to eat up the world, more companies are trying to replicate these exponential companies, hire less people, but grow exponentially through technology. As this happens, job roles are slowly disappearing and being replaced by skill sets. Employers require you to know an ever-growing number of new and ever-changing fundamental skills in order to use the technologies they've implemented. Master the fundamentals and you can master the rest. A digital skills gap is growing for both mid-skill and high-skill level jobs. Before you know it, you've become irrelevant. But wait, what's this doomsday message? There's actually a way to leverage technology before it leverages you. And in fact, it's never been easier to do so. This might sound kind of corny, but it starts with the right state of mind. It starts with having a growth mindset, where you have the desire and the confidence that you can learn anything. Shift your thinking on how these technologies will rattle and mutate, but enrich your work life. Because yes, if you play your cards right, technology will make your work life and your life in general much, much better. The fact is that technology will actually remove boring, repetitive jobs from your way, but only if you understand the fundamentals. And you have no excuse not to do so. How can you stay relevant if you can't talk the lingo? How can you stay relevant if you can't execute? Can you talk tech? Can you talk APIs? Can you talk code? Can you talk data? While slow educational institutions are struggling to keep up, that's not an excuse. Train yourself, take your education in your own hands, learn to code, learn about behavioral psychology, automation tools, playing with data, user experiences, be curious. And if you're an employer, train your people. Online and offline courses have never been more readily available or rich in content. It's time to build something. Your greatest credential in this new era is your output of stuff. Proof of your awesomeness, a website, a blog, a prototype, a simple data model. It's time to build cool stuff and showcase it. It's time to start learning. It's time to get shit done. It's time for your growth. If you're watching this, you're among the...
Okay, back here. So, I like this video. Can you hear me? Yeah. Sound is working? Okay. So what I like is this video is, yeah, there is a little bit of a frightening part on this technology and all the risk, but I think it's super important to be aware of it. And moving towards a new type of organization is a way to have a growth mindset, to give an answer to all those new challenges that we are facing. It can be a bit overwhelming sometimes, but it's a huge opportunity. And also what I believe is this opportunity is, in a way, a chance for us to be more human. To have more space for humanity in a way, but it takes us to make this shift, this stage of development. So growth mindset, you will find a lot of content on the internet on the growth mindset, on how to coach, how to demonstrate a growth mindset. But it's very much a mindset that is opposed to, as we say, to fixed mindset. So in this theory, growth mindset, it's a theory behind the idea of growth mindset, opposed to fixed mindset. And what is a fixed mindset? It's often a mindset that actually we often find as a by default way of thinking in many organizations, in many companies today, where basically what we believe people can do is conditioned by their past, right? Because they have this diploma, this experience, they can do that. That would be a fixed mindset. Or we believe the resources are limited, so we cannot do more because this is only what we have. The box is closed, right? And then, or we search for the rare pearl, the perfect person on the market out there that can help us, or a saver, or a team, or somebody amazing that can maybe save us. And then, as a result, in HR, for instance, we shortlist the talents or the high potential, and we believe that those are the only one we really should pay attention to because they are those who are going to lead the company tomorrow, because the others still cannot really. I know I'm exaggerating here, but that would be a way to demonstrate a kind of a fixed mindset. So the growth mindset thinks differently. The growth mindset is thinking that what people can do is conditioned by their own motivation, by what they want, by who they are. There are so many possibilities and potentialities. We're going to go and find them. So we search for people who share our values and purpose. And if they have this, we're going to build the skills. We're going to help them develop based on their motivation, the inner intrinsic motivation and willing. We will empower them. We will create the conditions for everyone to learn and develop constantly. And think about it, there is much more resources in that potential. This is the piece that is not seen by the fixed mindset. All this potential, this wealth that is out there, we can just find. And it's just not, I'm not just preaching here, I'm talking about very concrete things. I would like to give you some examples. I would like to give you the example of, okay, so I thought we had a film here, but it's not there anymore. All right. So I would like to give you the example of Cirque du Soleil. We didn't mention them so much so far. Cirque du Soleil, it's no need to present them. Think about the level of excellence that these people are. They are artists, but they have industrialized art, still keeping it art. I don't know how to say that. And to them, they really go for finding to growing talents, right? And so they see the potential in people. So what they do is they have, it's a best practice to demonstrate, I think, a growth mindset. They have every 3 months, each artist has a conversation with his coach about where was I excellent and what has been challenging. And he works on his 3 months priorities and 3 years priorities, building on the potential, making it happen. So that's a very simple way to, and related to the role of the coaches, to develop this growth mindset, finding the potential, making it happen, helping people doing so. That's an example. Another example is Decathlon. That story is amazing. What you see here is the map. So you will see in Africa, in Congo, there is now the Decathlon is also in Africa, and the shop of in Congo, the store of Decathlon. How did the CEO of Decathlon how is he sourcing people to open stores in the world? Well, they say, who wants to open a shop somewhere? That's how he does to all his employees, and people apply. It could be somebody on the store floor, a seller. Doesn't have to be anyone, a manager. Anyone can apply. And the story is that job, and it's just an example out of many. And that's how they grow, and they're so successful, by the way, by demonstrating this growth mindset. So what they did, a guy was from Congo. He was a seller in one of the stores, and he applied, having no knowledge, no skills, no diplomas to do so, to open the store in Congo. And then guess what? The answers from the CEO was, yes, let's try. Because why? Because he wants, because he's motivated, because he's from there, because there's a potential. And the guy was surprised to get his positive answer very fast. And then he started to freak out. He realized, but I don't have the skills. I don't know how to run a business. I don't know how to make a business plan, because now I'm asked to make a business. I don't know how to make a business plan. And his coach, because he has a coach, because at Decathlon everyone has a coach, or more, I'm thinking many people have coaches want to take some precautions, but he had a coach, and his coach helped him to find the resources, the skills. They are experts, remember, manager experts, that help him to do the business plan for him, with him. And he got all the coaching and the support from the organization to succeed. And this is how now Decathlon has the stores in this country. And that's a success story. And Decathlon is opening his shops just like that, I think, demonstrating this growth mindset. Okay, so I just found it was an amazing story, and it's very concrete because they make a lot of money with that. Okay, so I would like to hand over to you about emotional intelligence. That's another element of we spoke about growth mindset, we spoke about maps, and we want to say a few words about emotional intelligence.
So emotional intelligence is another theme, I would say, that comes through in different shapes throughout this journey, where we move the focus from IQ as a main competitive competence to EQ as the main competitive competence, where the future that I mentioned, what we're in already in the VUCA world, requires another skill set. Can you hear me? See me? Yeah. Okay. So it requires another set of skills than
just hold on.
Yeah. All right. Sorry. Okay. So we see in these living organizations that what is essential is that you have another set of leadership. There's another set of leadership skills, which is more leaning towards being emotional intelligent. Of course, it's the both, also high IQ, but the combination of the two. And where Ekharet that we visited, based on, actually what was so interesting with them was that all their work is based on profound on science, and a lot from Robert Keegan himself. He's been there with them, supporting them, developing this transformative skills. So what they talk about that a leader would need now and in the future is openness, being more open and aware, perspective seeking, being able to take different perspectives and to shift from the subjective to the objective, sense making, to make sense of the things that are happening, understanding, having an inner compass, being aligned with your purpose, knowing your direction and what feels right and not right for you, and compassion, which was a big one. How can we be more compassionate, more in empathy with each other? So we, as I mentioned, we visited Minds Unlimited. There, of course, we had some exercises in mindfulness and got a teaching on how the brain function and what are the effects on the brain when we do mindfulness practices, and how we become more intelligent, I would say, in relations to others. So we also practice that here's a picture of that throughout the Learnex. And there was another insight there on mindfulness. Can you share that? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So the insight that was a kind of a big insight, that realizing that mindfulness is actually an ingredient of an agile culture. It's a part of an agile culture, right? So why? You will ask why? Well, because mindfulness gives you the ability to notice what's happening in the moment. You become more mindful of what's happening in yourself, what you sense, what things come to your thoughts. You be more aware of your mind, of your body, etc. And agility requires this capacity to notice. Agility is a lot about noticing in yourself, in others, in the business, what's happening. So the more you build the capacity to notice, the more agile you are, right? The more you capture signals, the more you can be agile and answer and respond to those signals. But if you're not aware, there's many signals around, you will never see them, and you are too late, right? So I just want to make it was like an understanding on insight for us to realize that agility and mindfulness is a requirement to be agile. And if you want to build an agile culture, talking about culture, it's part of the emotional intelligence. Having mindful practices, creating mindful presence it's part of it. Okay. A word also maybe on nonviolent communication. Quickly, this is we realize, so nonviolent communication you may be familiar with. We know it's not new, though. Many companies we visited, maybe not each of them, but many of them said that how they have developed and started is by training people in nonviolent communication, creating, conscious relationship, not judgmental relationship, helping people to, be more vulnerable, so more authentic to one another, having more compassion in the organization. So the NVC, nonviolent communication, gives a method to develop those based on observations, feelings, and needs, etc. So we invite you very strongly this to consider nonviolent communication as a fundamental principle and skill to develop in your organization. I will not go there, and I would like to maybe conclude here as we have 2 minutes left. I think that will be good. So we have a few minutes left to maybe close. So these were the key elements we wanted to share with you in the structure. First, the DNA, express your DNA. That's the fundamental principle through purpose, through values, through organization principles to behaviors. That's the founding principle. Then element of structure and teams and circle meeting, rhythm, power shift, maturity, and element of culture, maps, growth mindset, and emotional intelligence. There was a program we've seen now. We want to end this. So thank you for your attention. We wish we hope this was interesting for you. We are very happy to we are curious to your feedback, because that was our first. We usually do all kind of events, but this was the first for webinars. So we maybe do more. We actually have a few events programmed. Maybe Marielle, I'll let you explain.
This was just a short, how do you say, image of the next Learnex that will come up next year from 3rd to 5th of June for those that are interested, but also on the next one. Just wanted to let you know that we have another upcoming webinar if you're interested. We've been working with Orange for more than 4 years now, and there is a real strong case on how we've implemented new ways of working, agile ways of working in a large organization. So people from Orange will join us and share that case. So you're welcome to join that as well. But like Mikael said, very happy and pleased for your feedbacks on this, if it was useful for you. And thank you very much for your attention.
And hoping to see you maybe in either in this next webinar. So it will be very hands-on from our clients. An experience of a company was making a major transformation towards self-management. So that will be Derek's story, and we will give the method we're using for that. And maybe if I just put it, I just want to emphasize that because we just opened the next Learnex in June next year. Will be there are 12 seats. Okay, so that was a little selling moment.
With all this content, we wish you a very good weekend and hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much. Have a very good day, and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We close it now.